Everyone says MMOs are all about raiding, dungeons, and min-maxing your build, but what if I told you that solo players, yes, the questers, crafters, and lore hunters, are the real reason that my favorite MMO, The Elder Scrolls Online, is still alive today? ESO was built differently, and while endgame players are great at taking the spotlight, it's the silent majority that's kept this game thriving for over a decade now. See, I asked you guys the question over on ESO's main forums this week: how often do you play ESO completely solo? And the results were even more one-sided than I thought they'd be, with nearly 40% of players playing solo for at least 75% of their total time in-game, and just about 50% of you playing solo all the time. Now that's a huge skew towards solo gameplay, but why is that? And more importantly, why is this fact so important to the survival of ESO as a game? Today we're breaking down how solo players saved ESO, and why they also might be the most important type of players in any MMO by far. But first, a quick word from today's video sponsor, Boot.dev. With Boot.dev, you can learn back-end web development from start to finish in languages like Python, Go, JavaScript, and many more, but in a way that makes it easy and fun for gamers. That's because Boot.dev treats learning programming just like leveling up in an RPG, where you earn experience by completing challenges, unlock chests for bonus rewards, and add pages to your spellbook with helpful notes for review. Boot.dev even hosts boss battles for their entire community to get together. Now, Boot.dev is exactly what I needed recently when I had to learn JavaScript to update my website, hacktheminotaur.com, but you can use Boot.dev to get a real job in programming too, and earn an amazing real-world salary. According to Stack Overflow, the median salary for back-end developers in the US in 2024 was over $100,000. All of Boot.dev's content is free to read and watch in guest mode, while a paid membership unlocks more interactive features like hands-on coding, AI assistance, and progress tracking to gamify your learning. That's in addition to a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy and a free demo of the interactive experience for every single course. And there's literally dozens of courses to choose from Python to TypeScript. Remember, you can't learn to code without doing the fundamentals, writing a lot of code and building real-world projects, all of which Boot.dev does through daily challenges and a real community. With Boot.dev, you're never bored, so you can actually reach your goals. So go to Boot.dev right now to try out their courses for free. Then just use my code HACKTHEMINOTAUR to get 25% off your first year if you choose the annual plan. Huge thanks again to Boot.dev for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into it. So to understand why solo players matter so much in ESO, you just have to look at how the game was built and how it's changed over time. ESO is over 10 years old now, and the current state of the game is actually much different than how it started. See, unlike most MMOs that throw you straight into dungeons or demand party coordination from the start to survive and complete content, The Elder Scrolls Online was designed with the opposite approach. This is, after all, the same universe as Skyrim, Oblivion, and Morrowind, games known for deep single-player stories and exploration. But as obvious as this sounds to us right now, ZeniMax Online Studios didn't lean into this core Elder Scrolls experience with ESO at launch. But for one thing, studio director Matt Firer came from experience with a different MMO, Dark Age of Camelot. And because of this, ESO was originally pitched as combining Dark Age of Camelot's PvP with World of Warcraft's PvE, and Oblivion's IP. Remember, ESO's development started way back in like 2007, 2008, so this is even before Skyrim existed as a game. So early ESO was built more like a traditional MMO. We're talking tab targeting, lots and lots of abilities, and a more group-focused content model. Rich and Matt, in their recent interview series with Kinda Funny, openly admitted that they started out by building ESO as a, quote, standard MMO, and it only evolved into something resembling an Elder Scrolls experience later on. But what forced the change? Fast forward from 2007 to 2011, where Skyrim launched while ESO was mid-development and became a cultural phenomenon pretty much overnight. It redefined what players expected from an Elder Scrolls-style game. Solo-friendly, immersive, and accessible, where players could do and be anything they wanted. And that's when the team admitted that after seeing Skyrim's success, they realized ESO didn't feel like Elder Scrolls quite as much, and this led to a dramatic pivot. So to better match Skyrim and meet fan expectations, the ESO team had to basically redo the game just before it was about to release, with tons more Elder Scrolls-like features. This included a first-person view, free aiming for combat instead of tap targeting, fully voiced dialogue for all NPCs, which was a massive investment, especially back then. Fewer abilities on your skill bar, which turned into our 5 skills plus an ultimate, which was inspired more by deck building games rather than an MMO toolkit. Exploration-driven questing instead of traditional hub-style MMO structures, and fully lootable environments. In that interview that I mentioned, they at one point talked about hiring a team of interns whose sole responsibility was just to place junk into every single base game zone container, like boxes and barrels and shelves. Probably hundreds, if not thousands, of nodes, which is wild, but it makes sense. And that work helped to recreate the Elder Scrolls experience inside ESO. Unfortunately, by the time PC launch rolled around, many of these improvements were still in progress, and the public reception to the game suffered because of it. Scores for ESO started coming in anywhere from the 90s all the way down to the 40s, so not a great stretch by any means, and many players were highly critical, pointing out that the game still didn't feel like the Elder Scrolls.
You done f***ed it up!
That's because many early players were expecting Skyrim Online, but what they got felt more like an Elder Scrolls skinned World of Warcraft. As Matt Fire explained, they built an MMO that had to quickly evolve into an Elder Scrolls game, and that's based on community feedback and Skyrim's unexpected success. But this was just the beginning, and more work would need to be done to turn ESO, the online game, into the Elder Scrolls experience that it is today. And where things finally started to make sense for ESO, and where the solo story-driven focus really started to take shape, goes back to around 2015 and the release of ESO's first complete story expansion called Orsinium. Orsinium introduced players to the expansive zone of Hrothgar, offering over 20 hours of story content, which was a new peak for ESO at that time, and surprise, it was extremely popular, especially with the quote solo players looking for that Skyrim-style experience. So the success of Orsinium's narrative-driven content style influenced ZOS to adopt a similar approach to their future expansions, and this led to the introduction eventually of the chapter model, which we had for several years, each of those featuring a new expansive zone and a standalone story arc. Chapters like Somerset, Greymore, and Blackwood would continue this trend, offering solo-friendly gameplay first that appealed to both new and returning players. So while it took quite a few years to get there, the world of ESO is now huge and rich with a lot of solo-friendly content. Every zone is jam-packed with fully voice-acted quest lines, delves and public dungeons that feel more like single-player content, and even enemies that scale with your level. I mean, the hardest content for most zones, which is world bosses, can still be completely soloed with the right build. And yeah, most expansions have also included some group content, for sure, like endgame trials, for example, but this typically accounts for only one small portion of a DLC. The majority of the dialogue, the quests, the items, achievements, even the landmass itself has always been focused on solo-friendly content since Orsinium nearly 10 years ago now. So for a huge portion of the player base, ESO feels more like a single-player RPG, with grouping up as completely optional, and that's why they love the game. I mean, there hasn't been a new mainline Elder Scrolls series release since 2011 Skyrim, so almost 15 years ago now. That is crazy, but what's even crazier is that to get the best new, quote, new Elder Scrolls content, we're talking brand new zones never seen before, like High Isle and Solstice. ESO is the only game where you can get that, and that's a huge selling point for what is a highly deprived Elder Scrolls fanbase still waiting for Elder Scrolls 6. But we can't continue this conversation without talking about money and the millions of dollars that solo players bring to the game every year. Because here's the truth, most people don't realize solo players aren't just the biggest group in ESO, they're also the ones paying the most money. See, these are the players buying every new chapter day one for $40 to $50 because they want those new areas and stories that continue to make Tamriel alive and fresh and interesting. They're also probably the ones who subscribe the most to ESO Plus, not for access to the latest trial or endgame content, because that's not really included there, but for the crafting bag and the double bank space and all the convenience that makes soloing so much easier. You see, solo players don't have as much time on their hands, so anything they can do to speed up the progression for their favorite game, they're going to be interested in buying. And don't even get me started on housing, that's probably a completely separate video. I'm sure you know ESO housing is the most solo-friendly content, honestly, in the game, but it's also by far the most profitable for ESO because new houses cost players hundreds of dollars each, and even more to keep them fully furnished. There's definitely a reason why new houses come out every few months and haven't stopped since the housing system started. ESO is fully committed to housing now more than ever, with updates like housing tours, which are part of the game, and also now officially sponsored housing contests, which we're seeing more frequently. So when you get right down to it, even skill line progression and faster leveling can be bought for a price in ESO. And who's the most likely to do that? Endgame players who play multiple hours a day, or solo players who maybe only have a few hours each week to log in and want to make some noticeable progress. So in many ways, solo players aren't just keeping ESO afloat right now, they're actually funding its future. But where do we go from here? Well, again, the numbers don't lie. I believe the percent of solo players in ESO has at least stayed steady, if not increased dramatically over time, because more single player focused or solo systems keep getting added to the game, and there must be a reason for that. I mean, we talked about housing before, but there's also companions, which is another more recently added feature, which attempts to make the game feel more like a Skyrim-style solo adventure. And then there's new solo or duo arenas like the Infinite Archive, which tries to aim at giving solo or casual players just more things to do in-game. And I think we'll continue to see more features like this added in the future, not just to make ESO more solo-friendly, but just to make it more Elder Scrolls friendly. I mean, who knows if we'll still be alive by the time Elder Scrolls 6 drops. And for many players, ESO is the only world they can live in until then. And while I think group content will still be encouraged, like we have group finders and more recently guild finders in-game for all types of content now, it probably will never be required for a significant portion of the game, like was typically the case with older MMOs. And for what it's worth, I think ESO's push to single-player friendly content and solo content definitely saved the game and made it a viable MMO for long into the future. They made the right decision here, and that's great for all of us because it means the servers stay on and the updates keep rolling in. Hey everybody, just a quick note that we are updating our members-only builds now to incorporate subclassing, like the brand new Druid build I released this week for members, which combines powerful fire and lightning magic along with animal companions to fight by your side. I've been having a ton of fun with this one as well, because it truly feels like a brand new class, a fully functioning druid in ESO. It's epic. The members of our Tier 2 Elite Squad can unlock this build right now, along with dozens of other members-only videos, like our classless Barbarian build, Unkillable Arcanist, and many more. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, it really is the best way to do that because you get a truckload of bonus content, not to mention early access to videos and members-only Discord. But just be sure to select the Elite Squad option if you're interested, as it's the only way to get that new content. And to get started, just click on the Join button down below or the membership link in the description to see our complete library of members-only videos. Huge shout out, as always, to our channel members who make this channel possible. I could not do what I do without you, so thanks again. Thanks to all of you for watching this video. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.